And remember, things are not always better downtown. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Justin here. As always, thank you guys so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Today we're going to be talking about last night in Soho. I just walked in the door. I just got out of my car, came in my house, turned on my lights, and threw on the camera because I had to talk about this movie as soon as possible. Guys, last night in Soho is absolute magic. It's electric, it's incredible, and I cannot wait to tell you guys about it. This is going to be very spoiler free, very vague in my description, but I'm going to try to implore you guys and beg you guys to rush out to your theater as soon as you can and see this in a theater because it is absolutely masterful in every way. From beginning to end, my jaw was on the floor in amazement at how well made and well executed last night in Soho is. This movie comes from Edgar Wright, the writer-director of the Coronado trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, At World's End. He did Baby Driver. He's an amazing writer-director, and Last Night in Soho is the type of movie that only a director, a writer with experience and multiple films under his belt could even begin to tackle, let alone achieve the level of creativity that is found in Last Night in Soho. I'm going to give you a very vague plot synopsis because I want you to go in as blind as possible. In fact, if you haven't seen a trailer, I wouldn't even suggest watching a trailer or reading a plot synopsis. Go in blind and just be prepared to be blown away. The movie centers around Eloise, a first-year fashion student who moves from her little idyllic, innocent countryside home and moves to the hustle and bustle of Soho in London. Now, basically at the beginning of the movie, you know that she is very innocent. Her grandma is telling her how crazy and dangerous Soho can be. You know she lost her mother, but you don't quite know what happened. At the beginning of the movie, you do see that she sees her mother in a reflection in the mirror, but you don't quite know what is going on there, whether it's a vision or what. And her grandmother also says she has a gift. But you don't quite know what that gift is. After moving to London, she gets stuck with this awful, horrendous roommate in her dorm, so she finds a room for rent in this old lady's house, in this super old house near her college. And upon moving into this house, she immediately starts to have these visions. And not just visions, she seems to be almost transported to another world in the 60s, and she begins sort of living vicariously through this woman, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, this singer in the 1960s. Eloise isn't really there, but it's almost as if she is because she's side by side as she sees all of these things start to happen to this young singer played by Anya Taylor-Joy. I know it seems kind of complicated and I'm being very vague. It's because, and that's very intentional, I don't want to give away anything. Each night, night after night, Eloise starts to have more and more intimate visions into this young singer's life, and things start to spiral out of control for both of the women. Both the woman in 1965 and Eloise, as the past and these visions start intertwining with her own life in the present. And the lines sort of start to blur as to what's happening in present day with Eloise and her wrestling with these visions of the past of this young lady that she's seeing. Now, what makes this movie so incredible is how intricate and immersive the movie is. This movie doesn't just have a soundtrack set to scenes. This movie is an all-in-one, like, sort of immersive experience. All of the choreography and the colors and the music and the incredible sound design weave together with such amazing synergy that I've just never seen anything quite like it. One thing that cannot be understated is the sound design and music, but this movie isn't just songs set to a scene. What you're hearing as far as sound design and music is every bit as important as what you're seeing on screen. The sound design, the lighting, the cinematography are intertwined, and they are completely integral to the type of storytelling that Edgar Wright is using in this movie. It's not a musical, but the soundtrack and the music and the sound design are every bit as important as to what you're seeing on screen. So it just brings this completely unique experience to watching. It's absolutely incredible. The colors, the choreography, the blocking, the amazing performances. Anya Taylor-Joy is incredible as always, but the lead actress who plays Eloise, I had actually never seen her, and she's absolutely incredible, perfect casting. A lot of this movie takes place in the 60s, and it appears that all of this movie was shot in or around London. I'm not quite sure, but the authenticity of the locations just adds so much. Everything in this movie feels so authentic. You have all these amazing fashion and hairstyles and cars and buildings and architecture. It's just absolutely incredible. This movie borrows from and definitely pays homage to cinema of the 60s, especially the giallo films from the late 60s and early 70s. I'm sure a lot of folks will compare the style to Suspiria because the colors and the soundtrack is so bombastic and in your face. But what makes this incredible as compared to something like Suspiria, in my opinion, is a beautiful film. It sucks you in with its visuals and its soundtrack, but when it comes to its narrative and story, that's really not what you're watching Suspiria for. What Last Night in Soho is able to achieve is having that highly stylized, impressive look and feel to it, but also having a compelling story. And that's what makes this movie so incredibly delicious to watch. It's just magic. It's electric for every moment. There is scenes in this movie I can't even describe how I was feeling. I haven't felt like this in a movie in a really long time. I'll also mention this movie has one of the most amazing kills I've seen. Now, this movie isn't wall-to-wall gore. I would actually call it a horror film. Edgar Wright himself describes it as a psychological horror or psychological thriller. I would definitely categorize this as a horror film, but it's just not a balls-to-the-walls gory slasher. But the horror elements definitely push this thing into being a horror movie, for sure. I saw this in my local independent theater, and Edgar Wright actually had filmed a personalized introduction for our theater in Kansas City, in the Screenland, which is amazing. I have my ticket right here, which was another amazing touch. But I cannot praise this movie enough. This is such an incredible experience. Edgar Wright has absolutely topped himself. Now, Edgar Wright is oftentimes known for his comedies. This movie is absolutely not a comedy, so it's definitely not the most fun movie that Edgar Wright has ever done. And because of the mystery, it's definitely a mystery thriller. Because of that, it may not be the most rewatchable film, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. In fact, I think this is easily Edgar Wright's best film. It may not be his most fun, it may not be his most rewatchable, but it's easily his best film. Now, this film won't be nominated for an Academy Award just because it's a horror movie, but the sound design in this movie is deserved of every award. This movie should be up against Dune or something like that for its intricate and incredible sound design, costume design, lighting, cinematography. It's all fucking incredible. Rush out as soon as you possibly can and see this movie in a theater. It's worthy of the theatrical experience. I guarantee you, you will not be let down with Last Night in Soho. It's fucking incredible. As you can see, I'm very excited about Last Night in Soho. So guys, I'm gonna stop there. I could go on and on and on and on. Maybe I'll do a spoiler review because I'll probably feel like talking about this movie again. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Last Night in Soho, and I think we're done here, guys. Stay weird, always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. And remember, things are not always better downtown.